Hi, I'm Lindsay, host of the Live Like Eden podcast. What do you do when your whole life flips upside down? Are you questioning everything, lost in chaos, or yearning for life's deeper meaning? I've been there, deep in the thick of it, unraveling my own awakening mess for over 20 years. Now I'm here to help you through yours. I share no-nonsense weekly wake-ups, cutting through the ego's illusions to wake you up to your own spiritual wisdom. No mountaintop bliss needed here, just practical tools, insights, and real-life experience to save you time. Plus, a much-needed laugh when we're all losing it. Let's dive into this fresh new episode. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Have you ever gotten up in the morning and now that it's fall, it's starting to be a little darker, a little harder to wake up. You're strolling into the bathroom and you flip on the light and you look in the mirror and you almost scare yourself because of how haggard you look. Oh, how many of you have looked in the mirror and gone, whoa, I'm looking older? Or the sunlight hits your face in this very perfect way where you look at yourself and you're like, wow, I'm aging. It happens to everybody, right? It happens to all of us. For those of you that are listening that are young, you're not going to have this experience yet. But as you get older, you start going, whoa, my face is looking a little different. Got a few more wrinkles. Some sagging skin is starting all over the place. It's inevitable. It's the body. I want to focus today on aging. It seems to be an obsession of the mind. The body is always an obsession. And I want to specifically look at aging and our date with death. And as I talk about this today, I'm hoping it just opens the door in your mind to think of other possibilities that could be going on in this world. There's so much emphasis today on living longer. The longevity movement is booming, right? We got to live longer, live healthier. There's nothing wrong with any of that, but I want to take this a little bit deeper. And I frequently talk about the body. I talk about health, but I want to look at it from a spiritual lens, from a metaphysical lens today, and then you can decide what you think. First, I want to touch on the obsession with the body and anti-aging. I mean, you can't go anywhere without being pitched for some anti-aging cream or some procedure to make yourself look younger. It's just in our face 24/7. Then let's look at, is death predetermined? Is there some sort of soul contract where we already have an ending to this life? And again, that's going to touch a little bit deeper in the metaphysical. And then lastly, let's talk about letting go and living freely. Like, what can you do in your life, no matter how long your time is here? What are some things you can do to just feel that freedom, that peace, and that inner calm that I so frequently discuss on this show? The obsession with the body, it's truly on another level, isn't it? I mean, when you really dive in and look at all of us with our obsession with our own body, I mean, nobody is free from this. And the body is constantly communicating one thing after another to us, right? And as we get older, what happens? You start having some aches and pains. And then people that are older start doing what? Talking about their aches and pains all the time. You know, especially older people, because health declines so rapidly that it's the forefront of their mind. The older you get, the closer your date with death, and your health becomes probably your number one concern most of the time, people's health. When you're young, you don't really think about your health much, do you? I don't remember thinking about it when I was younger. You know, you're just living life, living freely. You don't care what you're eating. You don't care what you're drinking. You know, kids today that just partying like crazy. You know, I have a daughter in college and I can't even believe the stories of the amount of partying these kids do. And I'm always like, wow, like, how do you get up the next day and function? Because as you get older, that isn't happening anymore, right? Everybody who's done that in their life knows it doesn't last forever. For those people that it does last forever, end up having more issues, more health trouble, more addiction issues and things like that. But the body will eventually start screaming at us, and it screams at us through pain. I'm always amazed today at the amount of effort that we're going to remain young, or at least look young on the exterior, because there's a lot of things you can do today, like plastic surgery, Botox, all these different procedures that are now medical spas or whatever they call them. They're making your physical appearance look younger, But are you actually any younger inside if you're still doing the same harmful things to the body? Eating a certain way, drinking a certain amount, all these things apply. But we're really obsessed with our appearance. We're obsessed with how we look to other people. And this fear of aging is very apparent. All of us have this on some level, right? It's like the aging process is inevitable. Whether it's plants or animals, all of us go through the birth, life, and death cycle. That's just the way it is here. And today, because there's so many different things you can actually do to your body, people are saying, well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to pay for all these procedures and I'm going to look as young as I can for as long as I can. I don't know about any of you. If you do too many of those treatments, it's very obvious that the face is no longer moving. There's a level where you're like, wow, now that's an obsession too. But what is this fear of the body aging or sagging or looking old really about? Like, what are we so afraid of? And why are we so obsessed with glamour, what we look like, looking well? What is that? Where's that coming from? To me, it's like just a distraction. It's a distraction from the ego's perspective to stay only focused on the body, because that's the ego's doing, to stay focused on that body as long as possible so that we miss the inner connection that we have to our spiritual self. We just stay obsessed with the body, make it as young as we can for as long as we can, and then we live out our life and then we die. You know? And the body looked good doing it. I mean, it's kind of a strange thing when you really start like analyzing it a little bit. I want to first say I'm not knocking anybody who wants to do anti-aging treatments or whatever. I really am not. I think that whatever makes you feel better, go for it. But the real issue becomes, are these treatments or anything that we do that's obsessing over how we physically look, is that a permanent solution? Or is it just masking something that we're really seeking, which is that deeper connection to true peace, love, compassion, all these things that we're really yearning for from the spiritual side of ourselves? Because nothing on the outside is going to replace that feeling of connection that we're missing, right? That connection to home, that connection to the Godhead. If you look at the body is merely a communication while we're here, and we can become too obsessed with it, where we're only focused on the body, that we miss the door that's opening to get us home. So I look at aging as no different, right? It's really no different. It's just another way that the ego looks at something and gets us distracted. And then not to mention, we've got all of these images of beautiful people, right? All over the television. Like, you can't be on television if you're not decent looking. I mean, how many newscasters or people on the screen for movies, like, you have to be decent looking. It's just a fact. And so we're seeing like a smidgen of the population, all these beautiful people. And then most people are very average, right? We're all just kind of average looking people. But we have these images of perfection. And now you can pretty much doctor up anything. My kids get on and look at all these fashion sites and they're like finding cheap clothes all over the place, and they'll show me what they want. And I'm like, this isn't even a real body. It's not even a person. I try to tell them, like, look, I hope you guys know, like, this is not a legitimate real body. This is just AI, and don't get any ideas in your head that you need to look like this, because it's a thing. Making it look like the skin on photographs is perfect, when if you see people in real life, nobody's skin is like perfect. There's pimples all over the place, moles, pores, marks, red spots, you name it. People have stuff on their skin. It's kind of interesting how we doctor up even our own image online. Like, how many of you, if you put pictures of yourself on social media, nobody's posting that early morning picture when you get out of bed and you look haggard. We're putting our best image up there. Another lens to look at here is the ego is really looking at its fear of its own demise, and the ego's associating itself as an identity, as a body. So when you feel that you are obsessing over your own body, and it doesn't have to be aging in particular, it could just be obsessing with health, obsessing with this perfection of eating as clean as you can, or, whatever it is, you can really latch a hold of a lot of stuff. Is that just a distraction that the ego is putting up because of its fear. Its fear of its own demise, and that's the relationship it has. It's the only relationship the ego has is with the body, so keep that in mind. It doesn't have a relationship with spirit because it's not part of the Holy Spirit. They're very different things. You're talking about the ego's foundation, which is solely based on separation, individuality, identity, and being that separate entity apart from God. And the spiritual side of us, the spirit within, or the Holy Spirit reminding us that that's not who we truly are, and our real home is in God. It has nothing to do with a body. Now, that's a conceptual thought. It's something you can theorize in your mind. It's very different when you start trying to live it, right? I always say this, like there's parts of us that can have these great conversations and theories about life and philosophy about life. It's quite a different experience if you actually started losing your identity, if you actually started going through an unraveling process where you are not what you thought you were. That presents itself very differently, and the practical application of it in the world is completely different than just theorizing something in your mind. And towards the end of the show, we'll get to that practical part of feeling disconnected from the body and feeling closer to this larger essence than we are to the physical body. Before we move on to the next topic, I just want to ask you something to think about in your own experience of life. Just think about this for a minute. How much time do you devote to thinking about your physical body? Whether it's how much exercise you're getting, what you're eating, what you're putting into the body, how much sleep you're getting. How much time is your mind consumed with your body? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, because most of us are doing this, because this is how we operate in the world, right? We're operating in a body. We're operating in it so much that that's what we identify with. So all I'm asking you to do for now, I want you to scan through your life, scan through your day, and just observe how much energy are you putting into thinking about your body, about its health, about its pain level, about what it needs, about its survival, all of that stuff. Just do a mental survey and just see where you're at. And you might come out and go, oh my God, I'm literally obsessed with myself. All right. I'm literally obsessed with the body all day long. Oh my God, I got to get up. I got to make sure I have my cold shower. I got to go out and do my morning breathing exercise on the deck, do my yoga, my meditation. I'm going to make sure that I get my walk in. These are all things that we do. What I'm asking is, where is the mind obsessing and where is it just something you do? If you miss a certain thing, what happens to your mind if you can't complete that task, if you can't get your exercise in, if you can't eat that certain meal, what happens to your thinking? Do you immediately think, oh no, I just ruined my whole day. Now my body's going to be not optimal right now. Like where is the attachment to the body, to your health, to your pain level, all of these things? And just see, there's no right or wrong here. You're just observing where you are, where your mental attachments lie. So staying on this topic of aging, I want to talk about something that's always been very interesting to me, and that's the theory of predetermination. I've always been fascinated with metaphysics and philosophy and pondering the larger questions that no one really has an answer to, right? So why are we even talking about it? Because it's interesting. And it takes us out of the mundane, everyday survival tasks that we have to do to ponder the larger questions that we're seeking in our life. But this concept of predetermination, is everything happening in life predetermined? Has it already been set in stone before I enter this lifetime? Do you have a soul contract? Some people refer to it as a soul contract, that you come into this life exactly at this time and you will leave at this time, no matter what else happens in between. You have a predetermined date with death. What do you think about that? Because there's so much focus today on anti-aging, longevity. We got to live longer. We need to live healthier. Many people believe that doing these things will actually increase your life. Maybe they will. There's evidence to show that that's possible. But there's always people who are very healthy people. They do all the right things, eat a fabulous diet, and they die suddenly in their 30s or 40s. Oh, there's tons of people that do this, right? This is like, there's no guarantee when you come into this world that you're living a long time. Children die, babies die at birth, some never even enter the world. I mean, there's no given that we are going to live to be 100. Most of us don't. In fact, the vast overwhelming majority of people do not make it to 100. But no matter what you're doing in your life or what your thinking is, entertaining the idea that there could be a soul contract. I'm not saying there is, but could there be a predetermined life that we're already destined to live, and we simply believe we're making decisions while we're here? The whole concept of free will comes in. We actually think we're making choices. And it seems that way, right? It seems like I get up, I decide what I'm going to do today, how I'm going to do it, where I'm going to be, which direction I'm going to go. All of it is a logical thinking pattern. At least that's what it appears or seems to be. But is that the case? If it's predetermined, if everything has already happened, essentially, because then you get into the metaphysics of time and where people start talking about, well, there's no such thing as time. We are living in what we see as linear time, that it's moving along in a linear line, beginning to end, past, present, future. Really, there's only now. And the only evidence we have that some sort of time has gone by is the aging of the body, right? It's getting older, even though it seems we're just going to sleep, waking up over and over and over again, doing the same stuff. But the body ages. So there's some evidence that there's a timeline going on. But many people in metaphysics discuss the fact that everything has already happened, or everything in all of our lifetimes is actually happening now, all at the same time. And then you ask, well, how is that even possible? Well, I have no idea. I don't know why we're not remembering all of it. It's almost as if we're in our conscious awareness where we currently are. And when we go into another lifetime, if that's true, your conscious awareness shifts into that lifetime. And it seems you're only remembering one lifetime at a time. But there's many people who go into past life regression and they start remembering past lives and all kinds of stuff. Young children are born, and many of them start talking about lifetimes they just had. So there's evidence that supports this, that people are having a memory. There's some sort of memory going on here. Let me just point out that memory is not in the brain, because if you're jumping into new bodies all the time, you get a new body. You got a new brain. It's the consciousness of yourself that is carrying those memories. It has to be. It doesn't make sense that it would be in your brain. So this concept of predetermination, let's say, you're living your life and you're doing all these things to stay healthy. No matter what happens in your life, you have a predestined time to die. When you're 87 years old, your date with death is going to come no matter what you do in between. What do you think about that? Is that possible? That it doesn't really matter what's happening in between because that's our predestined date with death? Or do you think everything's just randomly occurring here? That we actually are controlling the whole thing, that we can decide when we drop dead, that we can decide when we move on. Maybe some of us who had a brush up with death then suddenly get our act together and we get really healthy and then we live another 30 years or something. But again, was that predetermined? There's really no proof, right? You can't prove either one. But when you're specifically talking about health, and there's a lot of emphasis on this today, that the longevity movement is building and building. I was just recently watching a show and they're talking about some health breakthroughs. And I'm thinking, I'm watching it and it's a lot of stuff about, oh my gosh, yoga is so amazing and really helpful for stress. And there's all this scientific proof now. I'm like, what? They've been talking about this in India for like 10,000 years. So I don't know why it's suddenly like a thing. Like, do we just wake up to this fact? Kind of makes me laugh. There's a lot of things throughout history that have been there for a very long time that have either been covered up or our culture has changed so dramatically we've forgotten all these things. And now as they resurface, it's almost like this groundbreaking new thing. It's called relaxing. It seems kind of foreign when people are programmed to be go, 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 go nonstop. It is groundbreaking when that happens. I just think it's kind of funny. It makes me laugh. Because if we've really been coming back here over and over and over again for millennia, there's nothing new under the sun here. We're doing the same song and dance all the time. Survival in a different way, in a modern world, or we're regressing back. The name of the game is we're still here. And this whole concept of, is it all one big predetermined game? And you have no actual say in when you die. I don't know. The only thing that matters is that you believe you do. While we're here, we believe that we're making these decisions. We believe we're taking charge of our health. We believe all that because that's the way it appears. But from a metaphysical or soul contract perspective or theory, that could be totally untrue. That actually everything we're doing here has nothing to do with the physical. It has to do with our awakening and deconditioning to wake up and return home. And when that happens, does it really matter how old we are when that occurs? I mean, the younger, the better. Good for you. Obviously, we don't say that here because losing loved ones and dying young is a very hard thing. And it's so emotionally shocking when we lose people that are really young, right? Especially if you've lost a child, a young child. It's devastating to us because we have this idea while we're here that we're supposed to live here a long time. That's kind of a conditioned thought. But the reality is that isn't really true. There's many people who do not. And that's the whole point of the show. Is there some deeper contract going on the soul level or the spiritual level that is unavoidable no matter what we do? And I can't help for myself but say, yes, that has to be the case. And you can answer the question in any way you wish. For me, when I look and survey and observe all the different ways in which people die, it seems that you have a date with death, that no matter what you do, you're not getting out of that sudden car accident, or you're not getting out of that sudden heart attack, or that sudden event that takes you from the body. And this sort of contradicts the movement today where people are saying we really are co-creators and we're really creating this whole thing. And it appears that way. So I don't want to negate it because it certainly seems that, what you think, what you believe, where you put your focus on is where your perspective lies. If you're consumed with something horrible, you're sort of sitting in that funk for a while. If you shift perspective, it can change everything on how you see something. But let's take that same concept now and apply it to this very theory. So if this whole world is predetermined, your life and everything in it is a predetermination that you are not aware of. So it's like you have no idea what's coming, right? Because it seems that way. We wake up and everything's coming at us. We don't know how the day is going to unfold. We just know that we're going to get up and do the same type of thing over and over again. We're going to have conflicts. We don't know where or when they arise, but we all will experience conflict. It's inevitable. Whether you're interacting with other people or you're having a conflict in your own mind with yourself. So if we apply this same general theory, do we have the power to shift perspective and see things from a different lens, even if we can't change the physical outcome of things? Is that the point? Instead of trying to control every little detail of our life and attract whatever we want into it and live to be 130, is there more to the story? And that's what I want to get at right now, is if it's predetermined, you could develop the mentality that says, well, then I don't really give a shit what happens here. I'm just going to live my life. But could you take the angle that, even if it's predetermined, I still don't know when that date with death arrives. I have no idea. It could be right now, and it could be 40 years from now. How am I going to move forward in my life and shift perspective so that I can let go and live freely? And that's what I want to get at right now. How can you shift perspective and let go of a lot of the stuff that distracts us, especially when it comes to aging, all the things that make us worry? We consume ourselves with these so much so that we are completely miserable. Right? We're not even seeing the beauty and the essence underneath the form, the connection to spirit that's sitting there every moment, right here, right now, all the time. When we get consumed with the theories and the worry and the aging process and, oh my God, when am I going to die? And I want to live as long as I can. does the energy we consume to avoid that ruin us? Does it make your life worse when you get so consumed in the worry of it? And that's something to ask yourself. Would you rather live your life accepting that at any moment is your last moment? That's a given here. We don't talk about death in our culture very often. In fact, it's like we're really avoiding the whole thing. And we see death as a terrible thing. We do. We see it as a horrible thing. And it's actually really sad. And it is for the people that lose their loved ones and their friends and family members. It's sad because you had a connection with that person and now you will not see them again. So we view it as this very sad event. And from an emotional perspective, it is. And none of us can get through that without going through those stages of grief. Usually you go through stages of grieving something you've lost, someone you've lost and loved and cared for. But could there be a shift in the culture that this world is temporary? Like we know that the moment we're born. The second we're born, there's a death. It's coming at some point. You have no idea how long it's going to be. Instead of viewing this world as this is the place to be, because that seems to be the way that the world views it, culture views it this way, that, this world is amazing. We have to change it and save it and all of these things. These are just common things you're going to hear all the time. We got to make this world a better place. And I'm not saying not to do any of that. What I am suggesting is that we look a little bit deeper, that if this is a temporary existence for everybody, right? And if it's true that we have a destined timeline while we're here, that we will leave at a certain time and return to a better place, let's say, because many people who have near-death experiences, and this is kind of the only place you can go for this kind of information, people who've had near-death experiences, and there are millions of people around the world who've had these, many of them do not want to come back here. Now that's telling, right? They're saying that it's so much better outside of the body, that this place is not what we think it is, which is exactly what A Course in Miracles is saying. It's not what you think it is. So when we're in form, when we're in the body, when we're identified as a body, we cannot even fathom what it would be like without it because we're so obsessed with it. We're obsessed with the world around us. It's very hard for us to even know or even have time to think about what lies beyond it. Very few of us are sitting around thinking about this, unless you've had experiences that take you there. That's typically when you're going to wake up to exploring this realm, is when you have something happen to you or you've lost somebody suddenly or, whatever the trigger was. It'll take you into that vast place like, wow, there's got to be more than here. This world is a little nutty. If the culture today would spend more time embracing death as a return to who we truly are, and that it's actually a joyous time. Not that you have to throw a joyous party. I'm just saying that we should actually be happy for people when they leave this plane and go on to wherever they're going next. Isn't that some sort of a relief that we all should have? Because those people that have had near-death experiences are saying, hey, they're almost depressed that they have to come back, some of them. Some of them come back and they're just overjoyed that they get to experience this world in a new way, that they know they're now returning to something better. They're not afraid to die anymore. So it's taking away that fear that most of us have if we've never had a near-death experience. But what are some of the things we can do to free ourselves, to live freely? I mean, what is the point of being in this life? What is the point of it? Unless we learn to be happy and free doing it. Is the point to come down here and work our asses off and try to retire just so we can drop dead? In return to oneness, maybe. Is the point to just be miserable in what you're doing all the time? Or is it to see the beauty beneath the form? Now, it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day. On many levels, we have to do that. But how long do we do that until we want something deeper, until we're yearning for that deeper connection? And that's what I'm talking about right now. So, what can you do to let go of the attachment to the aging process, the attachment to whatever's coming in the body, the attachment to living longer, being healthier, or the fear of death, or whatever comes up for you? What can we do to let go of it? So, one of the things that comes to my mind is how to stop fighting the aging process, right? Stop fighting the battle that we play in our minds with the eventual deterioration of the body. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who are working to say, well, we don't really need to age and the body is not meant to age. And I'm thinking, I don't know, anybody over 100 and they look 100. you know, there isn't a 100-year-old who looks 30. It's just the way it is. It's like a decaying. And how can we come to terms with that is recognizing that we are not the body. We're just using it while we're here. It's just our vehicle, our car, if you will, that gets us from point A to point B to communicate with other people. That's all it's doing. That's all it is. So if you can shift your perspective, as I was just discussing, if we just simply shift the mind into a different viewpoint, it changes everything. It's not going to change. The body's going to do its thing, right? The body could get ill. The body could come up with chronic conditions. Are there things out there that might help those conditions? Absolutely. Does it mean that your date with death is going to change? I don't know. That's something we don't know. But it certainly seems that there's no proven formula with health because people die that are healthy. And people that barely eat and they smoke cigarettes and drink, they live a long time. It cracks me up. What's interesting about this is because science is so involved, it's all about, well, the science behind it. But science is never going to touch a soul contract or predetermination. It's just never going to do that. So what science is looking for is some miracle formula for living a long time. And then when the anomalies happen, they don't know the explanation for why Joe Schmo over there who treated his body like crap is living longer than the person who cared for it. It doesn't make sense in a world of cause and effect. And then you beg the question, is cause and effect really a thing in the world of metaphysics? Is it really a thing on the soul level? If you just look at it like that, it seems like it doesn't matter. Does A plus B really equal C? It doesn't appear to. Because if A plus B really equaled C and there was a miracle formula for living as long as you wanted, then everybody would be doing it. We'd be able to put the plan into place and it would work, but that's not the case. It doesn't work like that. So then you kind of open yourself up to maybe there's more going on here. There's more to the story. There's much more than just doing X, Y, and Z to be healthy, right? Whether it's eating better, exercise, getting outside, things I talk about a lot. Will it matter with your date with death? So how can you just let go of this? How can you shift your perspective and detach from the battle and the resistance to aging? And ways to do that are to really start a spiritual practice or a meditation practice where you start emptying your mind. You start disconnecting from thought, because thought, again, is also a distraction. Thoughts can become so rampant that we start believing we are the thinker. If you've had any moments in your life where there was just dead space and expansion with no thought, then you start going, oh, there's more. There's more than just that automatic pilot thinking mind. And are you really the thinker? And that's another thing to start with. Am I really the thinking mind? People that have difficulty detaching from thought is usually because the thought is going nonstop. The awareness or the space between is not growing because thoughts are taking over. And it's not only that thoughts are taking over, it's that they are grabbing a hold of those thoughts and then believing them and worrying about them. So there's that going on because we all have thought. Thought comes in, it comes out. It's a matter of, are you going to step out of thought, recognize that you're not your thinking mind, and join in that large awareness field that I talk about a lot on this show, and choose, am I going to believe that thought or am I going to just let it go and smile at it and recognize it for what it is. It's just a thought passing through my mind, and it's desperately seeking my attention. It's desperately wanting me to grab a hold of it and take the bait, so that now I'm distracted and distracted and distracted, and I never discover the peace within me. So look at that in your own life. Do you have space in between thought? And if you don't, then it's probably a good idea to take time, and you don't need a lot of time. It could be 5 minutes in your day where you sit, you close your eyes, and you just be. You don't even have to practice a specific meditation, although you can if that helps you at first. At first, it's just sit and be. If thoughts come up, they come up, and they will, especially if you think a lot, or you're used to grabbing a hold of thinking. Just watch the thought. And when you get really good at it, you might practice it longer, and maybe you develop a regular meditation practice. And then if you get really good at it, you realize you can do this in your waking state. You don't have to set aside separate times to do it because it's a part of you now. It's just like learning anything. When you're learning something and fine-tuning your skills, you take time to practice it, right? If you want to become a better anything, you want to be a better cook, you want to be a better artist, you want to be a better writer, you have to take time and practice that craft until eventually it becomes you. You are that professional chef. You are that amazing writer. You are that fabulous artist naturally, because you've now moved into that moving meditation all the time. So think about that in your life, where you're at, just as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, like where are you at with how much you grab a hold of and obsess over the body? Where are you at with that? And then sit down and say, okay, if I'm obsessing over the body that much, then maybe it's possible that I'm actually obsessing over thought regularly, right? And then do I need to develop a little meditation practice to start the journey into the awareness field? And that's what I'm getting at here, is that connection to the observer, the spiritual side that's watching all the time, that's reminding us we are not our thinking mind. It's reminding us that we're really not this body. It's simply a vehicle while we're here. As you do any kind of meditation or moving meditation, or you're just actively looking at aging and how much you're obsessing over it, start thinking about how we view the aging process as we are losing something, because we're identified with the body, right? And our mind, we're losing ourself because the body is now deteriorating. It's looking different. It's not functioning optimally anymore. And that's us. And we're losing ourself. Now, to shift gears here, if we aren't the body, if we really have nothing to do with the body, it's just what we're doing while we're here, then you can start building that relationship with spirit and recognizing you are already whole. You haven't lost anything. You simply forgot it was there. That's it. It didn't go anywhere. It just got very cloudy, and the water turned very, very murky. But that's because we're distracted in the world with the external situations that happen to us personally, to what's going on in the world around us, and to our thinking mind that doesn't shut up. So think about that too. As I'm identifying with the body and I'm really attached to the aging process and I'm upset about it, because most of us do. It's like you look in the mirror and you're like, ooh, what can I do to beautify this situation? Thank God for makeup, ladies, right? God, I love it. But again, just shifting into the idea that you're not the body. And when you're learning to attach to spirit, you're recognizing that it's already whole, that you are already whole. Of course, the body is showing you it's not, because it's losing and deteriorating and going through a decaying process. And therefore, it looks like it's lacking something. And quite honestly, it is lacking something. It's lacking optimal health anymore. But that isn't the true essence of who we are. Other things you can do to live freely are see where you're worrying about your demise. I think a lot of people, as we hit middle age, we start thinking about that, and all the health things that are coming up and the aches and pains that are arising, or if you've developed a chronic illness. that enters your head. And then now all of a sudden you're in and out of the doctor all the time and they're throwing all these tests at you. And now you're awaiting the test results. And now you're worried if you should go back and take more testing. And I guess the question is to always just examine your mind and say, well, what am I comfortable with? What am I comfortable with? Am I worrying too much about this? Can I learn all this information about my body and detach from whatever happens to my body? Can I still do these things and not worry about them? Because I know deep down that I am not this body and my body is going to time out whenever my destined time is. What is your level of comfort? And that's another thing to consider. So besides developing a short meditation practice and then eventually a moving meditation and really analyzing those thoughts, how much are you grabbing a hold of them? How attached are you to your body, your identity as a body, and the aging process? You can also start doing things that make you feel free. Think about when you were a child. What did you do that just made you feel like you were free? I was a dancer. I loved dancing. So every now and then I'll just turn on some music and I just dance in my bathroom, or I'm dancing around the house. I sing out loud and my kids roll their eyes because I'm a terrible singer. It brings me joy. It gets me into this free space of liberation. So think about, for you, what are some things that you did when you were younger that maybe you don't do anymore that could bring back that feeling of freedom, that you're flowing again with life, how it is, and you're not judging yourself. You're not beating yourself up and holding yourself to some unforeseeable standard that every mind has, right? How many of you put up some sort of perfection in your mind that you should be looking this way, achieving this in your body? I mean, it can really lead to a lot of unnecessary stress. So thinking about what can you do, what do you enjoy doing that brings you peace, makes you feel like that liberated, free-flowing person again. A lot of kids in my generation, we rode our bikes everywhere. We were always riding our bike, and it gave us a sense of freedom. Now, all I see are kids on e-bikes everywhere, motorcycles on the street. I'm like, wow, another level of freedom. When you implement things that make you feel good, you are disconnecting to what your mind is telling you you need to be doing or should be doing to achieve optimal health. And you're now intuitively connected to spirit. You are now building a bridge to that realm, which brings you happiness. It brings you peace and calm, and it will also allow you to let go of the fear of the dying process, of when you're going to die, of what could happen in the body. You're now going to feel it differently because you're building a bigger connection to your spiritual self, which is ultimately where we're going anyway. So why we spend no time doing that, I have no idea. I think we're ultimately afraid to leave the world. We're just afraid of what's beyond this. But there's too many people that have come back from a near-death experience to say otherwise. There's too many of them that say, man, it is absolutely night and day. It's not even close. This world is not an easy world. It's a difficult world. It can be easy for some and difficult for others, but overall, it's not a stable world. I just said this to my husband the other day. I said, this is not a stable place. It will never be the stable environment that we are truly seeking. And what we're really seeking is the stability of peace, the stability of our spiritual self, which is that reminder of home. That's what we're seeking, because we're not going to find it here. And the moment you realize that is when you free yourself. You free yourself from the attachment of the perfection that you want in the body. You free yourself from caring what happens to the body. If it ages, it ages. I can do some things to make myself feel better in the body. Absolutely. Go for it. But ultimately, it is going to age, and accepting that. And there's a beauty in that. I look at people that are really old and I look at their faces and I see the lines and I think it's beautiful because it tells a story. It's telling a story about their life, what they've been through. A lot of people wear their stories on their face. And can you shift perspective and say, every little aging mark I earn is telling a story about my life? In that is beauty. In that, we're seeing the beauty beyond the form, too. We're getting into the wisdom of what this life is offering us instead of worrying about the form and how long we're going to be here. and all of the things that drive us crazy. Right? So I hope this talk on aging and our maybe or maybe not predetermined date with death just opens the mind a little bit to leave you with something to think about. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time. That's it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. If it resonated, please share, follow, and drop a review with your takeaways. It really means a lot. Visit my website at livelikeeden.com to subscribe for weekly reminders and blogs, or sign up for a free 30-minute consult to explore one-on-one guidance sessions if you're really struggling in Awakening's darkness. Take my Awakening quiz to get a personal podcast playlist that meets you exactly where you're at. See you next week for another deep dive.